Hello, this is Erin, and I'm here talking about my series on emotional regulation and intimate communication series. So, my first two podcasts in the series, I talked about signs when you feel like you're emotionally dysregulated and tips on how to regulate yourself and why that's important. My last podcast, I started talking about needs, which is mostly acknowledging your own needs, becoming aware of emotional needs. Everyone has needs. Many of us have been taught to pretend that we don't have them. And then what happens is it comes out in weird and interesting ways. Sometimes it comes out in manipulative behavior. Like if we have a need for connection, maybe we're going to try to rescue people because then we're taking care of them and we feel connection with them and we feel like we're nurturing them, even though we could just ask for some kind of connection, verbalize that. But many times we're unaware of these needs that we have because we've been taught to not vocalize them through modeling from our parents or from what we've seen, or sometimes when we have spoken up about our needs, we've been told to shut up or that that's not important or you're being selfish, so on and so forth. But I taught yoga church this morning and we did a share at the end. And one of the participants said, the best thing that you can do for others is to take care of yourself. And the best thing for others to do for you is to take care of themselves. And it's true. It's true. So there's so many things that are variables that we cannot control in this life. And so being able to do inner work and control our inner experience as much as we can is profound. I have been working with one of my clients for about 15 years, and he has developed some heart palpitations. He's up there in age. He's in his 80s. And I was teaching him, hey, listen, there's so much you can't control. Like even it feels like your heartbeat, you have no say over. What can you control? And we talked about the breath and the thoughts. And he was able to regulate his breath. And that palpitation that he was having in his heart really smoothed out and seemed to be less during the session. So we can have a physiological impact on our nervous system and on our bodily functions by regulating ourselves. And intimate communications and emotional regulation go hand in hand. Because if we're not expressing our needs, if we're unaware of them, if we're pushing them down, pretending that they don't exist, it is going to impede our ability to regulate ourselves, because there's a deeper part of us that knows that there's something that needs to be met that's not. There's some need there that we need to acknowledge. And if we don't, our body's unsettled, our psyche's unsettled. A huge need that I've become aware of in this last year is I have a need for information. I would make assumptions about my partner as far as, oh, what are we doing here? Like I like to plan and he's a little bit less planning. And not having that information, I would make assumptions like, oh, well, it's not really going to happen, or he doesn't care. And by me acknowledging, it's not even the planning aspect. I just need to know where you're at. I want to know what your inner universe is. I have a need for information. And I found that when I started becoming aware of that need, and that's like, gosh, I've been doing this work with intimate communications and emotional regulation for about 4 or 5 years. In addition to all the other life coaching tools I've had, but I've really been focusing on this work for that long. And even doing it that long, this new need came up in the past year. I have a need for information. So now when I ask these questions of information, I get the information, I'm so much more calm and I'm able to regulate myself so much better. So you can see how these two needs, these two categories fit together like peanut butter and jelly. So the last podcast, I was talking about emotional regulation, signs of dysregulation, and how to regulate yourself. Then I was talking about needs, like mostly how you recognize your own needs, and then how you go about starting to meet those needs. And I mentioned in the last podcast that acknowledging first, and I have little charts that you can have. They're actually available. If you email me, I can send them to you. In my masterclass, I talk about this. But we have these emotional needs like space, justice, autonomy, transparency, honesty, connection, physical intimacy, an organized living space. These are just a couple of like hundreds of needs that we can have. And us verbalizing, becoming aware of these needs allows us to become more skilled at recognizing it within ourselves as well as within others. So today I want to talk about how to ask, how to verbalize these needs that we have. So let's say we've acknowledged them, we recognize the importance, I need to regulate myself, so I need to vocalize this, and I've even been meeting my own needs. I like to say when you start acknowledging, meeting your own needs and asking for your needs to get met, and sometimes getting them met, it feels like you've won the lottery because that's our deepest needs being met. So asking for our needs to get met. This is where people, they get, like they feel a little uncomfortable because it's vulnerable. Like asking for your needs, like expressing that you have needs is vulnerable for a lot of people because in a sense, it feels like we're giving up control. But I want to remind you, if you feel that way, that needs are something that you can meet yourself, and you're inviting somebody else to meet them in the name of intimacy and the need in the spirit of reciprocation, in the spirit of relationship. And that's okay, because when you start receiving, then like your cup will be filled to give more. Like in my relationship, my partner has recognized this and he's receiving more, which like I'm so happy to give. And it's like kind of opening up this beautiful cycle of giving and receiving. And we're nurturing each other. We're really in such a good spot in our relationship and uncovering all these different things because we're doing this kind of work. So being able to ask is important. Now, when you ask, you need to get really clear about what it is that you need. And you might need to like breathe, regulate yourself and ask, what am I feeling? What do I need? What do I need? So sometimes asking yourself, what am I feeling, can help you to access what you need. If I feel disappointed, let's just say that, okay, I know what I feel. I feel disappointed. Why do I feel disappointed? And if you sit with that and you say, okay, why do I feel disappointed? Because I wasn't sure that I did a good job. Okay. Then what do you need? I need reassurance. Bingo. So then, okay, I have a need for reassurance. So that's something that I can meet on my own. Like I can recognize, okay, listen, Erin, you did this best job you could. You showed up, like asking yourself questions like, okay, yeah, actually I did do that. A lot of times we'll forget all the things that we've done in a day, in a year, and with other people, and revisiting that can be helpful. But let's say that you've done that, and then it's like, okay, I want to do this part where I ask for reassurance. So how you would approach that is saying, hey, I love you so much. I really have something I'd like to talk about. I have a need for reassurance. Let's just say it's about the relationship. I really have a need for reassurance and emotional security in our relationship. And so that's the first part, is saying I have a need for, not I need you to. Did you notice that? I didn't say, you need to reassure me. You need to tell me I'm great. You need to remind me this is your problem. Because then people get defensive. Like everyone has their own stuff going on. Even if you're in a committed relationship, people don't necessarily like owe you that. I just want to make that clear. Now, certainly in a loving relationship, we try to help meet each other's needs, but you want to respect another's autonomy. So you can say, okay, well, I have a need for, and then when you say it that way, then it's vulnerable. It's like, I need something, like, could you? Not, I need something, you need to. Okay, so there's a difference there. So once you express, I have a need for reassurance, then that person might take their best guess at what that is. And they might say, oh, honey, like, you're the best in the world, da, 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 da. Like, I love you so much, and you're so beautiful. And like, so they might be guessing what that reassurance looks like, unless you can be clear about what kind of reassurance you need. Say, oh, thank you, honey. I appreciate that. I know I'm beautiful. But I would really love it if you pointed out a couple of details of how I presented and why you think that that was skilled or that that was valuable for my students. Do you see the difference? So asking for needs, like expressing needs, and then having a request is you really have to get clear about what the request is, because otherwise you might feel like angry, like, oh, I'm doing this need stuff and damn it, I didn't even get my need met. Well, you have to be clear, and people are not mind readers, though it is nice to have people in your life that like they're really good at guessing your needs, and chances are that might be a trauma response, or they're just like really empathic. And the thing is like, that is lovely when it happens, but if we're always depending on people to be that way, that's not really fair to them, because stress affects that. Life circumstances affect that. Nobody is going to be for you. Nobody is going to be there for you 100% of the time. And it's unreasonable to expect that. Like parents, for sure. Like my parents were checked out or working, or, and again, they're good people, but they're human. They're human. So not expecting that people are going to have the capacity to guess your needs all the time. Again, it is nice. And I've heard women say like, well, I don't want to have to ask. You should just know. And I get it. It is nice when you come home and, like the house is clean and dinner's made and there's rose petals and like soft music just in the way that you'd like it, or, your partner knows how to make your coffee in the morning. And these are little things like that can be learned, certainly. But I can tell you, make it a lot easier for your partner if you vocalize these things so that they don't have to guess. I often talk about the flower story on my podcast, and I'll just really quick share it here. So when I was in the early stages of my relationship with Matt, my partner, I always expected flowers when I would go away. Like it was just a thing, a manual that I had in my head. If I go away for longer than 3 or 4 days, I come home and there's flowers, because it's a little bit of a celebration that I'm home, and I have a need for celebration and acknowledgement and appreciation and like a, some sort of acknowledgement that I've been gone and now I'm home, like that you missed me and you thought about me. So some acknowledgement. And so I came home for my first long trip away from him and came back, and he didn't have flowers at the airport, and I was like, oh, they're in the car. They weren't in the car, and then they weren't at home, and then I was quiet and I wouldn't talk to him for 10 minutes. And he was like, what is going on with you? Like, I haven't seen you in like a week. Why are you being this way? And I expressed in somewhat elegant terms that I had expected flowers. And so when I actually verbalized it in nonviolent communication, I have a need for appreciation, I have a need for celebration, I have a need for acknowledgement when I come home, and I have a need for romance. And I would really like it if I'm gone for longer than like 3 or 4 days, that when I come home, you have flowers. They don't have to be expensive. They could be like $3 carnations. It's not about that. It's just about those things. And I made the request clear, and I'll tell you, every single time that I've been gone now, I come home and there's flowers. And it just took the guesswork out, and I don't feel bad about asking. Like, he was so happy that he didn't have to decode me and figure out can you imagine if I didn't say that and it was nothing, and then years go by, and every time I go away and come back, right? I made it a lot easier on myself as well as him by verbalizing. So asking and putting it in the form of a request and trying to get as clear as you can, not expecting people to read your mind. It's just like, sometimes they can, and that's great, and it's lovely when people can read your mind, but they can't always, and stress affects that, life circumstance. People are sick, and all types of things. So it's compassionate to express. And so learning those skills to be able to express yourself and acknowledge your needs, that is your work. That is your inner work, and that is how you foster deep and meaningful relationships, friendships, partnerships, all these different things. This work is the closest thing you will get to a user's manual. So getting to figure out what makes you tinker, what makes you tick, and, then trying to vocalize that. So I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. I'm going to continue talking about emotional regulation and intimate communications on this series. I just want to announce, if you haven't heard already, that I am going to India 2025, June 3rd to the 16th. We have a shala that has yoga, pranayama, teaching methodology, Sanskrit chanting, and pronunciation. We're going to go visit temples and sacred spaces in India. We're going to be exposed to the sacred arts, the dancing, the martial arts, the yoga. And you're going to have an experience that is procured by yours truly, someone who is very good with intimacy and communications and knows how to put on a wonderful experience. So if you're interested in that, I have 3 more spots left on the waiting list, and you can put your deposits in. Early bird, you get $500 off if you pay in full by October 1st. And if you're interested in attending my coach school, it's October 16th to the 23rd. And if you enroll in coach school or any of my yoga teacher training programs, you get India for 50% off, which is a really great deal. So I think that's it. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day. You can reach out to me, Erin at erincoach.com, give me feedback on any of these podcasts, or just say hello. All right, namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin at erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Thank you so much. Namaste.